Hi, my name is Indra Shekhar Singh, and you're watching with me The Ganja Show.
Hey Indra, welcome to the show. How's it going? Our first podcast has given us a great response, and I'm happy to have you again on the show. So let's just get into it. My first question now is we've discussed this in other podcasts as well, and I've seen that in your articles as well. Um, US during this pandemic, I read so many articles where increase in cannabis sales earning a set amount of dollars during the pandemic. They basically declared it as an essential business, and so many other countries are legalizing it. So, what is the power of cannabis, and what is the dollar behind it? How is it giving so much money to the government and to so many businesses?
Okay, Bipin, thank you for having me once again. You've made a very important point. Like, while COVID had shut down global economies, where because of COVID there were job losses and people were just going into destitution, which is even still the case, and I feel really bad for these guys. But there is an industry that's really picked up, and this industry is the medical marijuana industry. We have figures like the projections as per various market reports is that the US legal marijuana industry is going to hit $15 billion by December this year, which is only a few months from now. And if you compare the global economy, I feel that as per again conservative estimates, they were saying in another 2 years, 2 3 years, in a couple of years, we'll be hitting a $70 billion global medical marijuana industry alone. Here we are not talking about the illegal industry, we are not talking about hemp, we are not talking about the pharmaceutical industry, we're just talking about the medical marijuana industry. Also, we've got reports that countries like Germany and Israel are importing millions of dollars of like cannabis flower buds. So I feel there is a great opportunity. People are finally being more enlightened. They are actually seeing reason and they're going with science to recognize that this plant is not only sacred for India, but this is a sacred plant for the world because it's a healer. It helps people not only with anxiety, depression, epilepsy, cancer, pain relief, but it also gives them mental peace and helps them get over the paranoia and the psychosis that's caused by this pandemic. So overall, it's a healing plant, and we also know that a country like Pakistan now Pakistan, in an attempt to boost its economy, and we have figures. I think the foreign minister made a comment saying that it is going to boost the Pakistani economy by $2 billion. So that's how this plant is making inroads into the world. Everybody, wherever there is economic depression, they are now finally coming out of it using the sacred plant of Shiva.
The way you're describing it is crazy. I mean, at a certain point, we didn't even have in India general store shops open. And a cannabis shop in some other part of the world is declared as an essential business. That's such a stark contrast, considering, like we discussed before, cannabis is such an integral part of Indian culture, right? So, that we know for a fact. Now let's discuss, like you said, in all of these countries are looking for opportunities. In Pakistan, in fact, it's a illegal to basically consume cannabis, but they're exporting it now. So now let's talk about what are the benefits first to the farmers. I mean, those are the worst hit. Let's say business, if we consider farming as a business in the country, employs more than 50% of the country, but there's no return on it. So let's first talk about how does cannabis and how is cannabis in other parts, including Pakistan, is benefiting farmers.
So to begin, I would like to say that the 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 country of the subcontinent actually, it's home to the indica varieties. So that means that there are thousands, if not multiple thousands or hundreds of thousands varieties and sub varieties of the indica growing all across the subcontinent. Okay, so first of all, the first benefit the farmers are going to get is by actually conserving their own genetic resources and heritage and biological biodiversity heritage. Right, the same hemp plant that they've been using and grows wildly in our villages from Moradabad to down to South India, they can now start using that plant. You can start, going back to our own traditions where we made rope out of hemp, where we made clothes out of hemp, where hemp was used as pesticides, where hemp was used, to as a superfood. Hemp seeds were used. So overall, if the Indian farmer adopts hemp and cannabis again, not only are we going to embrace a real time doubling of farmers' incomes, but we are going to ensure that every farmer in the country not only grows grains, but also is a fiber producer.
Yeah.
Every farmer in the country can actually have a cash crop growing in his field, which requires very little water, which requires absolutely no pesticides and very minimal fertilizers. So not only are you adding to the community, to the ecology, you're also curbing the pollution which is happening on the farmland, while at the same time you're adding great surpluses to the farmer's income. Now, this is again a report coming from Jammu and Kashmir. They said that if a farmer in 1 acre grows hemp, the farmer is going to benefit. The surplus benefit is going to be at 35,000, whereas in currently the farmer can't even get 7 to 8,000 per acre if he or she grows marijuana, like just the hemp varieties or the cannabis varieties. They can actually get 35 to 50,000 rupees per acre. Now, just imagine what kind of revolution that can bring in rural India. We have basically we've adopted the British colonialism that has gone into our heads, and we've banned this because everywhere in India, from the villages to the temples to everywhere, it's culturally acceptable. It is something that
Hmm.
we've been doing for the past 5,000 years, and today the scenario is as like basically in the last 30 years, due to American pressure, we banned it. Now America is minting the dollar on it. Now Europe is minting the dollar on it, and India is losing out. And the funny thing is that China is now minting the same dollar by growing millions and millions of acres, having a own research department. Pakistan has picked up on it, Thailand's picked up on it, and India, sadly, I think, is not the early bird.
I would just like to get back to what you said before, just for the audience, and I also studied cash crops in my school or college days. But could you please explain what a cash crop is?
See, in basically it's just a category for certain
Hmm.
crops that basically get a lot of money very quickly. And for example, if this is cotton, right? For example, cotton is a cash crop, or jute for that matter. Like cotton, because of its high demand and usage, it's wherever the farmer grows it, they can get a lot of money. Okay, and I think that's why hemp can be the next revolution in textile. Because if we adopt hemp, we can India can increase its fiber production by 200 to 200, 250, 100%. You see, that is the kind, and we can achieve that by doing that in half the water required to grow cotton, half the land required to grow cotton, and half the pesticide, not even half the pesticide, almost zero pesticide would be required to grow this amount of hemp fiber. So I think this will bring a decentralization all across India. I think every farmer, states like Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, and northern states can become major fiber producers. So naturally, the problem in India, which is happening, that there's overproduction of grains or there's overproduction of tomatoes and all these other things, all that mismanagement will come to an end, because every village will grow enough fiber for itself, will grow enough food for itself. And as we're speaking on Gandhi's basically Gandhi Jayanti, I think it's a great step towards Atmanirbharta, or self-reliance, where every village and every community gets everything from one plant.
Yeah, I mean that's amazing when you say all of these mind-boggling numbers. Uh, Hopefully, we figure out a way to get all of these numbers to the right people and extend the footprint of hemp in India. Like we discussed before, marijuana or medical cannabis basically has helped so many people during the pandemic. It was an essential business, like we said. What can the pharma industry benefit from, and how can basically even farmers can again take part into this, even if we don't consume inside India itself?
See, first, I think I'll get you to a different tangent. In my opinion, and in my estimation, I feel that India can grow its economy by $25 billion if we embrace the plant, and that's just a conservative estimate. Okay, if we really go back and do complete research, which means having independent cannabis pharma industry, having like a cannabis, like basically just a custom export policy for the bud, for oils, for food, for paper, personal hygiene items, technical other commercial projects like paints and car parts and other stuff. I think we can replace a lot of toxic pesticides and toxic components and raw materials right now being used in these industries. So overall, we are looking at maybe 25 to 30 billion dollars boost in the Indian economy. Okay, and talking about now in particular the pharma industry, India is one of the largest countries with the maximum problems, which is cancer related problems, and also these other food style related problems that are now coming at to be, for example, pains, arthritis, and other kind of these kind of diseases, which marijuana helps in a major way. There is also so many kids who are suffering right now from epilepsy and seizures, and the medicine, I've been told, and I've also read up on it, each patient has to pay a $90,000 for a certain specific medicine. And what is in that medicine? The medicine has parts of from the marijuana plant. So why not India do this? Save our children, save our future. India is the land of Ayurveda, and it's funny that America has the topmost Ayurvedic research center, and also that America is profiting off Indian germplasm. You see? So why not India, the land of Ayurveda, the land of Shiva, the land where Atharved was kind of created, and it told all of us that, oh, this is a sacred plant and embrace its healing properties. Doesn't have a cannabis marijuana industry or a pharma industry. It's kind of appalling that if the world has taken our cotton and got it to their mills and selling it back to us for 400% prices. So India needs to think very critically and how to kind of start the pharma industry. It doesn't matter what the THC is, what the CBD is. The real question is, can we help Indians who are in pain, who are dying from cancer? Can we help our children who are experiencing like epilepsy and other things get a little better? Can we give them a little relief? How does it matter if it's a marijuana plant or not? You see?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, it has become a political issue, right? Like you said, it shouldn't matter for someone in pain to, think where their actual good pain medicine is coming from. And I think that's why US has tried to replace so many painkillers with marijuana. One interesting thing that you said was the germplasm. I have been reading quite about it, and the only basic knowledge that I have is India, or basically, let's say Indians, don't even know what kinds of cannabis plants exist in India, first of all. And even if they know, there is no, bank, or there is no list of things that we have. And since you're from the Seed Association, what are your thoughts on that?
See, I think the cannabis seed story is a story which will be a major scandal in the future. When we start legalizing, we will find that a major incident of biopiracy has happened in the country, where all the native germplasm, which basically means native varieties, native seeds, were grown in all across the India in biodiversity hotspots for marijuana, whether it's Kerala, whether it's Himachal, whether it's the Northeast, or like Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, MP, where all the places that it's grown. What has happened is in the 60s and 70s that people came to India, the hippies or whoever, or these some motivated agents, they came, took all our seeds back to their home countries, while at the same time putting their seeds in our country. Now, this smuggling of seeds that has happened is going to be a major biodiversity disaster for this country, because all our native resources are now being pirated, and India doesn't know anymore that which seeds were used for medicine, which seeds were better for hemp, which seeds were better for making ropes, which were better for making like hempcrete. So now we ourselves as a nation, because of a 30-year ban, have lost out on thousands of years of indigenous knowledge. You see, we've been like the native Indians who no longer know, because of like basically American or British colonialism, have forgotten their own roots.
Yeah.
So it's a case of that, and what has happened now, that there's also genetically modified seeds that are in the market, and many of these, again, smugglers, while they've taken our land races, they've thrown their genetically modified seeds on our biodiversity hotspots. So the whole case of biopiracy and patents, because once there is a global consensus on the legalization, there will also be a demand for patenting of marijuana seeds, because certain countries allow for patenting. So what I think the whole play is going to be, that once it's legalized, certain corporations or certain companies or certain interest groups will have patented the entire plant and then creating patented products from it and selling to all citizens of the world for humongous prices without realizing that all these plants are a gift from nature and a sweat and blood of all our combined ancestors. We've co-evolved these varieties in India and the world. All of us have done it together. All of our grandfathers have done it, grandmothers have done it, and even just all our ancestors have worked together to ensure that marijuana survives the way it is, and it is a sacred plant. And this is just a side reference. Not only does the Vedas consider it a sacred plant, but the Avesta, which is a very sacred text of the Zoroastrians, a very similar religion, which was kind of growing up while the Rig Veda was growing in India. Avesta was growing in Iran, what is now modern day Iran. And this culture considered marijuana to be the most sacred plant. So here we have a world's kind of understanding, which is that marijuana is sacred, and yet due to commercial interests and due to biopiracy and corporate kind of nexus, today the world is disenfranchised from using it, from from
Yeah.
from accepting this as a healing plant.
One interesting point that you mentioned, and we've discussed this. Uh, I've seen that discussion in length is about the cultural aspect of cannabis. Since last 50 years, it has been banned, but before that, it was legal, right? So, what do you think that legalization, like there was no legalization back then; it was just legal. What do you think that period has impacted? I saw one report, I think it was in 1920s or something, done by Britishers about the effects of cannabis or hash and different things like that. And they ultimately said that it's not bad for anyone and it's not addictive substance. And even though people went on and, made it illegal. So what do you think the cultural aspect has and will play a role in the future of cannabis in India?
You know, Marijuana and cannabis is extremely culturally acceptable. You
Hmm.
tell me one village in this country where there is no use of marijuana. You tell me one street in Delhi where people are not smoking in the side. Every corner, everywhere in this country, people are smoking it. So this whole illegality or the ban is a stupid idea because no one is following this ban. The world comes to India, to Shiva's India, to smoke hashish and charas, which has become kind of the synonym for hash. So where is the kind of cultural non-acceptance? Everywhere in this country, people are smoking. Every Shiv temple has a marijuana plant. Every time there is Shivratri, people are actually drinking bhang. Bhang is even legal in this country. So there is complete cultural acceptance. In fact, this is our culture. This is part of our worship to God and to Shiva. Now, what the problem is that this is kind of American bullying that has allowed this 30-year ban, or like you said, from the 1985 to now, which has been responsible for the government to take a negative position. But the
Hmm.
government stands in minority. I'm very sure that even people who are in government, they have either sometimes used this plant or as bhang or as part of rituals, or people, their sons, their children, their know-hows, they've used this plant.
Hmm.
So it's either through for recreational use, for ritual, for worship use, or in medicine. So the thing is that this plant has been part of India. It will always be part of India, and you cannot ever ban it. So my question is now to the government and anybody watching this that, well, when it's culturally acceptable, when everyone is using it, every village of the country uses it, every city of the country uses it, there are so many people who use it and don't show negative effects. Why not make it legal and get revenue for the government, stop money going to the mafia, and actually stop our children from being part of the drug trade and illicit trafficking?
Uh, Great points again, Indra. I mean, like you said, it's ultimately going to profit government and then the lower strata of the society first of all, because the tax money is going to improve the infrastructure of this country. Uh, Great talking to you again. Amazing insights on the topic. Hopefully, we can reach the right people and get some momentum going. Thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Thank you. And before I leave, I'll just say one thing. The world is watching and the world is waiting that when will Shiva's India legalize it? Everyone wants India to lead. And by India not leading, I think we're wasting a very golden opportunity. So my request is Modi ji or whoever is listening, please, 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 it's important to set a precedent and really stand for Hindu values and the values of this civilization.
Thank you so much, Indra.
Thank you for having me. Bye bye.